Tottenham are very close to agreeing deals that will see Emerson Royal and Brian Hill finally leave the club and are already pushing ahead with plans on how to spend that money and more of their budget. Meanwhile, loads of reaction to our very promising 3-2 win in Japan over the weekend, especially regarding our incredible young starlets. And Manchester United gazump West Ham for their top target. All this and more in today's daily Premier League transfer news with me, Barnaby Slater. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Please do press that like button. Press subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. I'm now only about 500 subscribers away from 10,000. Help me get there. Spread the word about the channel. Also, you can become a member of the channel. Only £1 a month. All the details in the description box below. But let's get started, as ever, with Tottenham Hotspur, my team. And, big talks over the weekend that Spurs are looking to sell a minority stake in a deal that could value the club at over £3.75 billion and pave the way for Joe Lewis and his family to sever their ties with Tottenham Hotspur. Obviously, Joe Lewis and ENIC, the company that he has, have owned the club now since the early 2000s. There's been a lot of abuse aimed at Lewis and ENIC. But one thing that I personally cannot ever stomach is anyone suggesting that we would be in a better place as a club had ENIC and Joe Lewis not taken over. Like, you can argue all you want about the amount of silverware, sure, I get that. But where we were at before ENIC came in as a club, under Alan Sugar and previous to that under Irving Scholar, where we nearly went out of business, they have stabilised our club. They have turned us into a top 6, if not very regularly top 4 football club in the Premier League. And yes, we have not won enough silverware, but that for me is the cherry on the icing on the cake that will come if we continue to build. Daniel Levy apparently seeking an investment that values a club between £3.5 and £3.75 billion, including the debt, which is a lot of debt that we have on the stadium, over £1 billion, but that is paid over a long period of time. Daniel Levy got very impressive terms on those loan deals. According to City sources, while the terms of any deal have not been finalised, Spurs are expected to sell about 10%. The club is being advised by bankers from Rothschild on the sale. And the financier, Amanda Staveley, I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago actually, who brokered the deal for Saudi's public investment fund to take over at Newcastle, is understood to be among the parties to have expressed an interest in Spurs. The club is also likely to attract interest from American investors. This is a story that was done in the Times over the weekend. So once again, the story that Levy and Lewis and ENIC are looking for investment will not go away. Maybe this is something where they're trying to drum up more interest again because, to be frank, the valuation of Tottenham at £3.75 billion, I mean, yes, we've got this incredible stadium, a money-making stadium that will keep bringing the cash in, but that is an incredibly high amount that you see as a value of a football club. It makes us kind of worth more than Chelsea. And of course, we know Chelsea, whatever you'd say about the state they're in since Clear Lake and Todd Bowley took over them, they have won Champions League, they've won titles. They have that, unfortunately, they do have that tradition and history now over the last 20 years anyway. So you'd expect them to be valued at more in terms of what they can bring in worldwide. But then maybe you can add on Spurs' success in the Asian market and how much money the fact that we've had Heung-min Son for nearly a decade now has brought into the club. And obviously another Asian player coming in now will not harm that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Spurs always looking to drum up ways of getting money, but I still think it's telling that we have not got a stadium sponsor, and that shows to me that Daniel Levy and Joe Lewis and the club think that brand Tottenham Hotspur are worth more than what people are currently offering for these bids for investment and for bids to become the stadium sponsor. So they think there is still a lot more room in terms of where Tottenham can go to bring money in, and for me, that can only bode well. For all of you who will get in the comments, and you're absolutely allowed to say, we should be spending more money on transfers, etc., etc. I always go back to this. Arsenal moved into their new stadium in 2006. They didn't buy their kind of what I would count as their big signing that showed that they had money again until 2013. That was Mesut Ozil. And then it was all the way up to like 2000, it may even have been 2018, 19, certainly 2017, when they finally properly splashed the cash and bought Nicola Pepe for £75 million in a move that just did not work out. So we've got to be patient. We only moved into the new stadium in 2019. It's now 2024, 5 years. Arsenal 2006 to 2013, that was 7 years. So another couple of years of making this money through the stadium, and I expect us then to become the kind of club that can regularly pay £100 million for players. Moving on to some transfer rumours. Spurs still pursuing a deal for Victor Gyökeres. The club have registered their interest in the Sporting Lisbon striker. However, more talk today that Arsenal and Liverpool are also fighting for him. And in fact, some reports in this morning's papers that Arsenal are in pole position to sign the 26-year-old. As we've discussed a lot, Spurs clearly in the market for a striker this summer. And that shows as well because talks still underway between Spurs and Lille for Jonathan David. West Ham also interested in him, of course. Lille apparently, because he's only got a year left on his contract, willing to let him go for £20 million. But I'll say it again, I think what happens to Richarlison will be key. If Saudi Arabia come in with the bid and Richarlison wants to go for 60 million, I think we will then push the button on getting another striker in. The Federico Chiesa rumours won't go away either. Spurs apparently actively pursuing signing him since July the 18th. Juventus waiting for Spurs to officially present their proposal. That's according to Sky in Italy. However, Ali Gold has got some reports from inside Spurs that he's not believed to be one of Postecoglou's top targets, and there's no truth to those reports. Meanwhile, Arsenal and Chelsea, according to various different reports this weekend, have reached out about the possibility of signing Chiesa. So, according to some of those reports, Mikel Arteta at Arsenal looking to find some backup, some competition for places for Gabriel Martinelli and Bukayo Saka. So who knows? To me, all of that coming out at the same time means it may well be agent talk. It could be Federico Chiesa's agent bigging up how many clubs want to sign him and trying to get a bidding war going. There are some doubts over his recent form. He's obviously an absolute Rolls Royce of a player, has been for years. But I don't know. I would probably go with Ali Gold and say maybe Tottenham are not actually interested in him. He's not exactly the profile of player that we are looking to buy at the moment. Obviously, since I last spoke to you guys, Yang Min-Hyuk has officially signed for Tottenham, had his photos taken. You'll see that in the thumbnail. Some quotes from him and others around the club about this signing. On what it feels like to join Tottenham Hotspur, Yang Min-Hyuk said the following: "I couldn't believe that a team like Tottenham was interested in me. When I heard that official negotiations had begun, I was delighted." He was asked whether he's met Sonny yet. He said, "I met Son Heung-min in Seoul while completing the last part of my medical test for Tottenham. He told me that I'm playing well and that I should study English diligently from now on." Okay, so that suggests to me that maybe Yang Min-Hyuk's English is not quite what it should be at this stage, and that's so classic Captain Sonny for me. Just be like, you've got these 6 months when you're going to go back to your club. Make sure you spend that time learning English so that when you come in January, you can hit the ground running. You can get to know your teammates. You can be integrated into the group as quickly as possible. Good advice from Son Heung-min, if you ask me. A Gangwon representative, so one of his club's representative, revealed that Yang Min-Hyuk chose Spurs over another Premier League Big Six team. He said the following: "It is true that another top six Premier League side who recently won the Champions League had also inquired about Yang." I mean, that makes you think that it must be Chelsea, no? Chelsea or Man City anyway. "That team had nice plans about Yang's development and had approached us earlier than Spurs. But what I didn't realise at the time was that Yang had his heart set on Tottenham. I even asked him if he wanted to go to that other club, but Yang straightly refused, saying he wanted to only join Spurs. To make it clear, it was Yang, rather than Gangwon, who made the choice to pick Tottenham as his next club. I respected the player's wish." Well, talk about in keeping with what Ange Postecoglou is trying to integrate into this Tottenham into the club, actually. It's the squad and the club, which he only wants people who want to be there. He only wants people who want to fight for the shirt. He only wants people who want to join this club over other clubs, who see their opportunity at this club to make a name for themselves, to play the brand of Tottenham football that Ange is trying to instill. very, very exciting that Yang made it clear that he wanted to join Spurs. As I mentioned at the top, Bryan Gil to Girona is a here we go from Fabrizio Romano. It's a deal that's happening. The deal agreed for the Spanish winger is on an initial loan from Spurs. However, in a bit of a surprise, and I'm sure you've read about this already, Spurs have decided to extend his contract for another year with a €15 million release clause. Girona then have the priority to sign him, or other clubs can sign him on that €15 million release clause. So what that tells me is that Spurs, maybe Johan Lange, Daniel Levy, Big Ange Postecoglou, they actually expect Bryan Gil to do really well in Spain. And actually he has done previously on loan at Seville, hasn't he? So they are willing to extend his contract by a year so that he can't go on a free next year in the kind of hope and expectation that this season in the Spanish top division, Gil will have a great year and suddenly we'll get more interest in him, or that Girona have another great year and they will be willing to pay the €15 million to take him. So could be deemed to be maybe slightly a bit risky, but Spurs confident that Gil, in a league that more suits his physicality, will do well. And I really hope that it does happen for him. Gil had made it clear that he only wanted to join Girona, and that is why Tottenham did that deal with them. And also, there was some rumour that apparently Bryan Gil said to the club that if they don't accept a deal with Girona, then actually he will just stay at the club and basically, we'll have to pay him to not play, because as we know, Big Ange isn't going to pick him, doesn't feel like he has the strength and for the rough and tumble of the Premier League. Emerson Royal, this is another saga. AC Milan apparently have finally come in with a bid which I think is €18 million plus €2 million in bonuses that has hit the Tottenham €20 million asking price for AC Milan, and apparently he is very close to a Spurs exit now. It shocked all of us. I was doing the watch along on We Are Tottenham TV at the weekend. Thank you for watching if you did. It shocked all of us to see that Emerson Royal started that game. But I have to say, although it didn't make any sense, because of course it was a bit risky in terms of getting him an injury or something before a move. But when Ashley Phillips came on in the second half, I have to say, Ashley Phillips, for me, I'm sure he's a great talent. He's not quite ready yet. Just made a few rash decisions. He's a little bit clunky on the ball. So I expect Ashley Phillips will go back out on loan this season. We'll lose Emerson Royal, and then maybe that is where another centre-half may well come in. Or I guess Ben Davies will be the fourth choice centre-back. Let me know what you think about that in the comments. And if we do get a fourth choice centre-back, who do you want that to be? Let me know in the comments. But yes, finally, looks like Emerson Royal this week will be leaving the club. As I mentioned, obviously a good 3-2 win against Vissel Kobe at the weekend. Very, very exciting to see some of those young players. Let's get some quotes from after that victory. Ange Postecoglou on the 3-2 win said the following: I thought it was a good game. Obviously, the conditions do make it difficult. It was very hot out there. And also, don't forget that Kobe are in the middle of their season. So, especially in that first 15 minutes of the game, they looked much, much fitter and sharper than Spurs. Postecoglou went on to say, the boys put in as much effort as they possibly could tonight. It's always the aim to put on a show, and it's always nice to give back in that way. Overall, I was pleased. I'm not surprised. I thought Spurs really did put in a good performance, like I said, especially the youngsters in the second half. Ange was asked about Sonny. He said Sonny did well today. He scored from the left wing. He played in the middle. There's only one Sonny, unfortunately, so I can only play him in one of the positions. Ange Postecoglou, clearly a huge fan of Son Heung-min, doesn't care that he's now in his early 30s. Sees, just like I do, that he's such an elite finisher that we need to just get him into positions where he can have more chances and score more goals. And I think it'll be the addition of another kind of marquee ball-playing 8 or 10, someone like Eberechi Eze, who will allow some of the pressure to come off Son Heung-min, especially in the games with the deep block, where we've got more options to shoot from distance or play in little through balls down the line, or in between the lines into the byline. And what we really need is to get Sonny in more positions where he can score, which he will do if he gets the chances, 20 goals a season. Obviously, Mikey Moore was a standout once again against Kobe, got another goal. He is on a run of something ridiculous, like 16 games in a row where he's had goal contributions, like goal or assist. Ange was asked about Mikey Moore. He says, Mikey has been fantastic since we brought him in. He's earned his spot on the roster at the moment. He did at the end of last year. He got a run with the first team because we could see in training that he was handling himself really well. And that's followed through into pre-season training. He's been good in all the games. He probably should have had 3 tonight, to be fair, and he did actually miss quite an easy header at the back post, that's right. But he did take his goal well by being in the right areas. All we can do is keep allowing him to develop. We have to remember that last year he had some injuries and he is only 16. But yeah, super exciting. I think the future with a lot of our young guys looks pretty promising, but it's our responsibility to make sure they realise their potential and continue to work hard at their game. Some really important points there from Ange Postecoglou. Firstly, remembering that Mikey Moore is only 16, and also, in fact, I think he only turns 17 next week, but also he's had some injuries. There will be still some growing pains in there. But at the end of that quote there, where he says we have to make sure they realise their potential and continue to work hard at their game. What that means is we have to manage their minutes to make sure that we don't burn them out, but also that when they start signing contracts, like Mikey Moore is going to sign on his 17th birthday, that he keeps his head grounded. He keeps his feet on the ground. He doesn't start driving into the training ground in a Bentley because he'll earn a lot of money. He will. His first contract will be worth a lot of money. And there have been a lot of big talents in the game who suddenly think they've made it because they've signed their first professional contract, and especially when they're getting as much press as Mikey Moore is. So it is very important what happens in the next stage of his career, and the same with a lot of those young kids. I was very impressed with Jamie Donnelly, for instance. Really, really impressive. Will Anksher came on and did well. He looks like he's really learning the kind of number 9 role, especially with his back to goal. And of course, Archie Gray, Lucas Bergvall, both very, very impressive. And they've already had their big moves. As I mentioned, the buzz around Archie Gray within Spurs is huge. Ali Gold was talking about this. He says that everyone raves about his talent as well as his personality, with a feeling that he could be the club's superstar in the centre of the pitch for years to come if he continues his current trajectory. Well, once again, Archie Gray started in the centre-back role, just the 3rd time that he's ever played that role, and honestly, he looked like a Rolls Royce. He was nicking in front of opposition strikers, he was controlling the ball beautifully, he was fizzing passes in between the lines into the midfielders, some of which Yves Bissouma and James Maddison were struggling with early in the game, but that just showed the confidence of Archie Gray, not only in himself, in terms of being brave on the ball, but also in the confidence of his teammates that if he fizzes it into them with their back to goal, into central midfield, that they're going to be able to take it. And of course they will be able to. They're top Premier League players, and once they're sharper and a bit fitter and know that Archie Gray will fizz those balls into them, then they'll be expecting it a little bit more. In the second half, Gray moved into central midfield, and he hasn't played there for us this summer yet. So I think it took a few minutes for him to get up to speed, and he did have a bad touch which led to one of their goals, but that doesn't take away from Archie Gray's performance as far as I'm concerned. He's an incredibly exciting young player that I think will prove to be an astute signing for Tottenham Hotspur. And of course, his adaptability, his ability to play centre-back, right-back, central midfield, that is so Ange Postecoglou and will only help us moving forward. Archie Gray was asked about what it's been like being around Son Heung-min, our captain, since being at the club. He said the following: "On the pitch and off the pitch, he's been helping me. It's just little things. He's really good friends with Joe Rodon. And last year when Joe was at Leeds, I was probably the closest with Joe when he joined, and I think when I came here, Joe told Sonny to look after me a little bit. He's making me feel really welcome, and just with the little things like helping me speak to everyone and helping me into the group." I love that about Sonny. I mean, what a guy. He's captain material. I know quite a few of you, and let me know what you think in the comments. Quite a few of you in the comments over the last few months have been like, Romero should be the captain because he's like an old school leader, tackles really hard, whatever. But Son Heung-min, behind the scenes, it's very clear that in terms of bringing people together and making people feel comfortable and making it a group where everybody is level, equality, etc., then Son Heung-min is absolutely, for me, the right person to be the captain. But let me know what you think in the comments. Lucas Bergvall was asked on whether Dejan Kulusevski has really helped him grow into the club since his move over from Sweden. He said he's been like a brother to me. He's been great. He's been guiding me, helping me with everything around, on and off the pitch. So I'm really thankful for that. To have another Swedish guy, we talk a lot and he's helped me a lot. He's an amazing player, of course, and he's been really helpful. Well, like I said, Dejan Kulusevski being kind of like the mentor and brother figure to Lucas Bergvall and helping him settle in quickly will only benefit Spurs, because if you've watched most of these pre-season games, Lucas Bergvall has blown me away. He reminds me of a mix between Luka Modric and, as hard as it is to say, Martin Odegaard. He glides across the pitch, manipulates the ball inside and outside of his foot, always looking to get forward, breaks forward at pace, not afraid to take a man on in the transition as well. If there's not a better option on him, he will take a man on, take it past the man. And also, he really showed me on Saturday, he's got a bit of bite about him. He's got a bit of the dog about him as well. He had a bad touch and he just flew into a 50-50. And look, He's very young, so that may get him the odd yellow card, red card this season, and he will learn from that. But he is a beautiful young player. Really love watching him play as well. Already started getting a good relationship on and off the pitch with Archie Gray. And I think it's very exciting, the prospect of players like Bergvall, Gray, Maddison, Bentancur, and Basuma as well, just all pinging it around in little triangles in the centre of the pitch. And that was one of the things that was so successful for Spurs in our first 10 games last season, where we won 8 and drew 2. The triangles that we were making in midfield, opposition teams could not get to grips with it. And I think Bergvall and Gray will be very similar and will really make us have great midfield options this summer. Bergvall was also asked about Sonny. He said, he guides you on the pitch and helps, of course. You can learn from him as a good footballer and see the things he's doing well and why he's that good. It's a lot of new impressions for me and a lot of things to learn from everybody in the team and especially Son. He's a top player. You can see he's been doing this for a very long time. He's a great person as well. Off and on the pitch as well, he's amazing, so it's hard not to like him. I mean, like I said, everybody loves Sonny. What a man. Sonny himself was asked about the young talents who have joined the club, including Mikey Moore, Gray and Bergvall. Not who've joined the club, obviously. Gray and Bergvall have joined the club, but he was asked about Mikey Moore as well. He said the following: I believe they are players with great future and they're training really hard. When I see them, they remind me of when I was at that age. I'm trying to help them, giving advice to them. They are for sure great talents, and I think we better not expect too much and just enjoy their development whilst watching them play. I have to say, Sonny, I'm sorry, but it's hard to not get too excited too early because I've just been so impressed with them. But sure, I have to, as a fan, and we all have to keep our feet on the ground and not expect them to just rip up the Premier League straight away. But I do think they have unbelievable potential. Some other news coming out of Spurs via Alistair Gold. He said that Spurs defender Jed Spence was individually drilled by our assistant coach Matt Wells, whilst the other players were practicing free kicks after training ended the other day in Japan. So that's interesting. Jed Spence came on in the second half against Kobe. He looked very good as well. He's got a lovely touch on him and knows when to give and go. And I'm still hopeful that maybe Jed Spence can stay at the club this season. I hope that he is willing to become a squad player because he definitely has all the attributes to be a great backup to Pedro Porro. And look, there will be games with him. There will be suspensions. There will be injuries. And if he can have the right personality and show to Big Ange that he wants to stay at the club and he wants to fight for his place, he's still young and incredibly talented. So let's see what happens with Jed Spence. There have been some pictures coming out on Spurs social media about him kind of looking far more integrated in the group and a lot happier than he had done previously. So I really hope it happens for Jed Spence. Matt Wells, Spurs' assistant coach, also said the following. He said, I was speaking with James Maddison the other day, and he was saying that he cannot believe some of the talent of Tottenham's young players. I mean, how exciting is that even our best kind of England international players are able to see some of this young talent and be like, wow, we have a proper group coming up. And that really showed in that Kobe game at the weekend. James Maddison was asked, what makes Ange Postecoglou special? And he said the following. We've had 1 full year together now. It's definitely a unique philosophy and a type of football that's not too similar to anything I've played with other managers. But I think it's brilliant. It's very attacking. It's very front foot, as we say in England. You have to work very hard, extremely hard, in every session and every game. But that's ultimately what we love, and I think we can be successful. I'm not saying it because he's sat next to me, but I believe that this way of playing, should we follow it, can bring success to the football club. He was asked that during a press conference out in Japan. I love that from Madders. He's like one of the least media-trained players you can get an interview from now, Madders. He says it as it is, and I agree with him. I think Postecoglou has got Spurs playing in a beautiful way, very front foot play. Will we concede goals? Yes, of course we will. But as we get better players in the squad, players with attributes who are more suited to Ange's style, it can only bring excitement as far as I'm concerned. And I personally think trophies. I'm not going to say this season necessarily, but if we stick with Ange for the next few years, especially with the chances that maybe Guardiola will leave, Klopp has already gone, there will be opportunities. Luka Vuskovic, our young player out on loan in Belgium, made his debut for Westerlo yesterday against Cercle Bruges. He played 90 minutes. Everyone's raving about him, so I'm just going to give you some stats. 15 clearances, 8 headed clearances. Lots of his club's fans saying that he is unbeatable in the air. 1 ball recovery, 4 out of 5 ground duels won, 4 out of 4 aerial duels won. See, showing that. 2 fouls won, 0 fouls committed, 4 passes into the final third. and 0 times dispossessed. A superb Belgian League debut for our young loanee who will come into the club next season. So, once again, as I've mentioned many times before, Spurs doing really impressively to invest in our academy, but also look at potential that we can bring into the club further down the line who have the attributes to play for Big Ange Postecoglou. Okay, before I go on to some more other wide-ranging Premier League transfer news, guys, once again, please do press that like button. It does help the video get up the algorithm so other people can see it. Also, press subscribe for me. I really appreciate it. If you're not subscribed, please do subscribe to the channel to get daily content. I'm near 10,000 subscribers. I really want to get there. I really appreciate your support. Please do press subscribe and also tell any other fans, football fans, but Spurs fans particularly, about the channel if they don't know about it. And finally, if you could become a member, it would really help me. It really helps me make this daily content for you. Just £1 a month. All the details in the description box below. Let's go on to some more Premier League transfer news. Paris Saint-Germain have apparently reached an agreement in principle with Jadon Sancho, but must meet Man United's asking price of about £50 million. The Sancho saga just goes on. Now he gets on with Erik ten Hag. He's been training well, apparently, but they're still potentially willing to allow him out of the club, and that might well be to invest that money in other players. Apparently, if he does go to PSG, United are targeting Nordi Mukiele, obviously Manuel Ugarte, who's been talked about as leaving Man United, going to Man United this summer, or Milan Skriniar, potentially an old Spurs target in a swap deal for Sancho. Man United have also reached a verbal agreement to sign Nusayr Mazraoui from Bayern Munich. That was a deal that looked like was going to happen for West Ham, but that deal is off. They'd agreed with the club. West Ham had agreed with Bayern Munich that Mazraoui could come to the London Stadium. They'd agreed a fee, but no player agreement on the agent side was reached. And despite the agreement between the clubs, Mazraoui is now going to go to Manchester United. And as a result, West Ham are now focusing on Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Price valuation of £10 to £15 million to get him out of Old Trafford. No agreement yet, but that is the right back they now want. Some other West Ham news, seeing as I'm talking about them, they want to take the FA to court to prevent them from banning Lucas Paqueta from football. West Ham are trying to argue that it's unreasonable for a player to potentially lose his career in a disciplinary hearing based on the balance of probabilities. That's all to do with the story that Lucas Paqueta has been accused of telling his friends to bet on him getting booked at various points during games. Very, very dodgy dealing. Obviously, what's the worst thing about it is that it's Paqueta betting on himself in his own games. Some other situations where there have been betting bans like Ivan Toney hasn't been as bad as that, and that is why all reports are that Paqueta may get banned for a very long time, potentially even the rest of his career. West Ham apparently also interested in Arsenal's Reiss Nelson, ready to make an offer of £15 million. Arsenal looking to sell Reiss Nelson and Emil Smith-Rowe this week. Man City are unlikely to sell João Cancelo to Barcelona because Barcelona cannot reach their £25 million asking price. I know João Cancelo is 30, but £25 million for such an elite fullback, I think just snap your hands off. But Barcelona struggling financially once again. Meanwhile, Aston Villa have apparently submitted a loan offer for Man City's Calvin Phillips. A lot of social media clips going around at the weekend when Phillips played in a friendly for Man City. Man City have actually lost their first 2 friendlies this summer. And Phillips was just not looking very impressive. Man City fans getting on his back. Over to Newcastle. Newcastle apparently have agreed personal terms ahead of signing Noni Madueke from Chelsea. He had a good season for Chelsea last season under Poch. He was one of the few bright lights. Chelsea got absolutely smashed in their pre-season friendly at the weekend 4-0. And maybe they're looking to make a bit more money back, having again just opened their wallets this summer. Newcastle and an unnamed Saudi club have apparently reached full agreement on a €30 million transfer for Miguel Almiron. I'm laughing because the Public Investment Fund of Saudi negotiating with the Public Investment Fund of Saudi to agree a €30 million deal for Miguel Almiron. I don't know. Do you think Miguel Almiron is worth €30 million? I personally don't. So, what can you say about that other than corruption? Over to Everton. Jake O'Brien will undergo a medical as a new Everton player today and will sign a contract till June 2029. He's coming from Lyon. The deal is €20 million plus a 10% sell-on clause. Fabrizio Romano says that is a here we go confirmed. As I mentioned, Arsenal in the transfer window, they're trying to make moves at the moment. They're prepared to advance talks with Mikel Merino's camp. They're trying to get him out of Real Sociedad. And if Emil Smith-Rowe, as expected, leaves for Fulham, then Mikel Merino could come in to the club. Napoli are preparing a bid for Billy Gilmour at Brighton, the ex-Chelsea player. He is up for joining the Italian club and playing under Antonio Conte. Brighton have already rejected an opening bid from Napoli, but it does look apparently like Gilmour may well make his move to Serie A. Southampton have agreed a deal to sign Ben Brereton Diaz from Villarreal for £7 million. Personal terms on the verge of being agreed, a deal set to be signed soon. David De Gea is finally going to start playing football again. He is linked with Genoa. However, some reports late last night that maybe that deal has stalled because of his wage demands. He was on something ridiculous, like 300 grand plus at Man United. Genoa are not going to be able to pay anywhere near that. But it is good because De Gea is a great footballer, a bit of a legend. He should be back playing the game. And finally, guys, Pep Guardiola has suddenly done potentially a little bit of a U-turn. He said he'd probably leave the club at the end of this season, but now he's refusing to rule it out. He said the following: "When I'm leaving, I will say I'm leaving. I didn't say that. We'll see what happens. I will not rule it out absolutely to extend my contract. I would love to stay." Well, what I'd say about that is, obviously it's pre-season. He's not tired. He's had a holiday. But maybe, as it gets more tiring, and I don't think Man City are going to win the league this year, and as the pressure comes on towards the end of the season, maybe he, like Jurgen Klopp, will say, I need a break. And if that happens, Tottenham, under big Ange Postecoglou, need to be there and ready with our squad, with our players, with everything that Ange Postecoglou wants to make a proper attack on the Premier League title. If it's not going to be this season, then next season. Am I being too excitable? Let me know what you think in the comments. Guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. Press that like button. Press subscribe if you haven't already. Help me get to 10,000 subscribers. Become a Spurred On member or Patreon member. All the details in the description box. Only £1 a month really helps me. And guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. Have a great Monday. Cheers.